Attorney General of the Federation, AGF, and Minister of Justice Lateef Fagbemi yesterday disclosed that the federal government will resume the prosecution of some alleged terrorists, including Boko Haram members, in the next 2 weeks. Fagbemi made the disclosure at Abuja at the opening of the 40th Technical Commission and plenary meeting of the Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, GIABA. He said the federal government has secured over 500 convictions and 45 billion naira for features in 2 years. The revelations came as the National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, yesterday said the security challenges in the country are on the decline. Ribadu was speaking at the ongoing 19th All Nigeria Editors Conference in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. He says the government is adopting a work more and talk less approach to addressing insecurity in the country.
By 1st June 2023, of course, when we took over the country, we had 4 active security challenges, serious ones. Even one alone will undermine a very physical and continuous management of a country. We had the Boko Haram and the Islamic insurgency, which for about 15 years or so now ongoing. We have had the Niger Delta, we do have the Niger Delta for over 30 years of insecurity. In fact, the banditry and the kidnappings, especially within the area of northern Nigeria, north central, northwest, and so on. And also, unfortunately, what is still a little bit going on with the southeast. These 4 massive problems, massive. Each one is capable of really bringing us to our own knees. All of them very active. At the time when we took over, well, probably like last year, average we used to record minimum of 1,200 or more violent deaths as a result of criminal activities. Banditry, terrorists, those who undermine the state and make life difficult for our own people. Yes. And we went to work. We did. The time we took over, the production crude oil, which is like what is an indication of things happening, was just about 1.1 million to 1.2.
Right, Dr. Bati, there's a lot to talk about as regards this 2 stories.
Well, the main thing to talk about first is about the Attorney General of the Federation, Prince Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, saying clearly that within 2 weeks, the trial of terrorists will resume. And that in this case, there will be physical trial, there will be virtual trial. And that, the idea of virtual trial, which is provided for in our laws also, is to speed up the process so that there will be no delay. The kind of delay that is associated, with physical trial in the courts. Now, many Nigerians will know the point here that this administration is not talking about rehabilitation of terrorists and insurgents, giving them uniform and giving them jollof rice and pepper soup at specially designed camps. Now, the Attorney General of the Federation is saying, if you get involved in terrorism in one way or the other, we will enforce the law. So I see it as a signal that the Tinubu administration doesn't want to mollycoddle criminals. And that in itself, at the level of signaling, I think is very important. He had pointed out that, yes, in 2022, a lot was saved, convictions were secured, but, what we should expect, I suspect the Attorney General is saying, is a greater intensification. Another point he made is that this will require cooperation, regional collaboration. And of course, it's a no-brainer that terrorism also has a character, as an international character. It also even has within the region, a regional character. And some of the elements that he referred to, that the process will focus upon, like terrorism financing, like the financing of the proliferation of, dangerous weapons. These are very important aspects of the subject. However, a lot will depend also on the capacity, the capability of our security agencies, okay, to continue to apprehend these terrorists or insurgents or bandits who generally compromise, the security of Nigeria. On the second part of it, the statement by Mr. Nuhu Ribadu, the National Security Advisor. Well, this is the second time he's making this statement about what they've been able to do so far. You recall the other week he was talking about how the previous administration bankrupted Nigeria. And yet, in terms of the fact that so much had been taken away, that they didn't meet when they took over in terms of the state of Nigeria's finances or the health of the economy itself, that the administration has been able to do a lot more within the short period of 6 months with regard to national security. And he expressed a commitment to do more. So it was just that same statement that he made about a week ago that, he was reiterating at the conference of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. And I recall that he cited specifically the example of the Borno area, the Northeast, where he says, look, they've been able to reduce, the spate of, banditry, insecurity significantly, and that they've even made a lot of arrests. But that this administration has adopted the style of not just advertising, well, if you like, you call it not just making claims without ensuring that the work is done. But the request of Nigerians will be that, yes, maybe initial gains, as he claims, have been made within the period of 6 months. But Nigerians expect that a lot more will be done. And that in any part of Nigeria that anyone, aristocrat or plebeian, find themselves, they will be safe. And they will be able to sleep with 2 eyes closed. Previously, for years, Nigerians have been saying, hey, they were sleeping with 1 eye closed. Nigerians want a country where they can sleep soundly and not fear that anything will happen to them, where they can travel across the country and not fear that they will be kidnapped or abducted, and that this country will be a safe environment. Also for farmers, who in many parts of the country, cannot even go to farm. In southern Kaduna and elsewhere, for fear of being attacked. In the larger part of Niger State, where banditry has taken over, large swaths of the territory. So yes, the challenge of insecurity is top of the agenda. One of the things President Tinubu talked about during his campaigns. And part of that ensuring security across the length and breadth of Nigeria will also be to check impunity, to check criminality, to check terrorism with international collaboration, as Fagbemi SAN pointed out, and to ensure that this is done on a consistent and sustainable basis and not as rhetorical submissions.
I think what has to be said, I would like us to challenge the NSA to give us empirical data at which insecurity has been dropping in the country. Because there's a pure difference between under-reportage, which I see has now become a trend because people have resigned to faith, and actual outcomes. But the cases that are still reported are cases that are very loud. And that is indicative in what happened recently in some parts of the North. What will be that empirical evidence to show, that farmers can now go back to farm, where large swaths of land are inundated? Will you say that those areas in Niger has been taken back from those bandits that the former governor of the state called out the people for and said, see, parts of my state are really inundated? Will you say the security situation has improved, even with the last election that were held, where you saw widespread violence in parts where those elections were held? So, general overview. We'd like to see the empirical data. And also, something he did say in the course of the week, that this government inherited a lot of indebtedness. I would like this government to publish in details the extent of indebtedness, because this looks like a normal refrain. I remember when the government of Buhari came in, President Buhari, Mr. Femi Adesina went to town with a very sweet language there and said they were clearing the Orgian stable of the Jonathan administration. But turns out, a governor from the APC, an outgone governor now, did recently say that the so-called Jonathan administration that they said was not good enough, had a lot of, mismanagement, was still the only administration in recent times that brought about development. And the indices were there in terms of economic growth and all of that. So let's have the precise figures. I think Mr. Peter Obi also enunciated that question. And let's have the precise figure of this level of indebtedness. And this, let me use the words of Mr. Femi Adesina, Orgian stable that this administration says they are clearing now as we speak, because everybody keeps talking about this backlog. Furthermore, I think Mr. Nuhu Ribadu says they want to adopt an approach where they do and people see what they are doing. I think it's best for the people to be able to make those inferences about how security has improved greatly. And I think it's not for us to be saying in 6 months' time that, we have done better than what we are today, when we are looking at the fact that things have not pretty much changed and it's just largely underreported. I just needed to make that point clear. Also, Mr. Fagbemi talking about trying terrorists. Yes, that's a good one. That's a welcomed one. We want the terrorists to be tried. But the question we keep asking is the political will and the confusion that goes around now trying terrorists. If my memory serves me right, the last administration had something called Operation Suluhu, where, like Dr. Abati would like to couch it, they pretty much gave terrorists ashwebi, jollof rice, chicken, and everything good. And it looks as though that we had built a culture where we welcome terrorists like the prodigal son. In fact, we even bring up proverbial Yoruba drums beating for them, Kaabo, Sheda, Dalude, and we pretty much thank them for their active service of terrorism. But if the Attorney General said they will be tried, we would like them to be tried. But apart from trying them, we would also like where they will keep them to be looked at. Because since we had a major prison break in Abuja and some terrorists left, we've not been able to even give accounts, for those. And please, I advise viewer discretion for that picture being shown. I apologize, but I advise viewer discretion. We've not been able to give account of those terrorists that went back and introspect on even our processes and what happened as regards that prison break. So how is the process going to go of trying terrorists? How can we bring a lasting end to all of this? But most importantly, it's not about trying terrorists. You see, there's something called the war economy I always talk about. Nigeria has built a war economy in the Northeast. That's why all of this continues. And the war economy involves many parties possible. And these parties are contending because they make gains from the wars. So how can we dismantle the war economy or replace the war economy with another viable economy in those areas? That is what is going to take it off. And that's why I go back to quoting Hernando de Soto. At the height of the insurrection by the Shining Path rebels, who would have thought that an economist like Hernando de Soto, giving the people property rights and advising the government to give people property rights, was going to solve the problem that the military could not solve over the years? So there's an economy to everything. We've built a war economy in the Northeast. Even for the crimes in Nigeria, we've built an economy for the crimes. And until we fix that and remove and divert that attention of that economy into other viable things, then we cannot grow as a nation. So I wish Mr. Lateef Fagbemi well. He also talked about the NFI, which I think, yes, kudos to them as regards their work, as regards financial intelligence and financial outlay. We'll quickly go to Liberia now. Early results from the presidential runoff election point to an extremely tight race. With about 90% of the ballot boxes counted, President George Weah has 49% of the votes, just behind opposition Joseph Boakai, who has more than 50% of the votes in the first round. Both men were neck and neck, and neither Weah nor Boakai achieved more than 50% of the votes in the first round, triggering the runoff. The same two candidates also faced each other in the 2017 election, which ended in a runoff comfortably won by President Weah. For more, my colleague Charles Ayagu turned to Arise correspondent Punarima Benjamin in the Liberia capital, Monrovia.
Okay, so information reaching us still shows that opposition candidate is still leading with over 700,000 votes, while the incumbent president, George Weah, is having over 600,000 votes. But countings are still ongoing, and we're still waiting to see whether by the end of the day a winner will be declared. But so far, countings are still ongoing, and this is the latest we have concerning the results. Well, when we went around the streets of Liberia, we spoke to some young Liberians who are on the streets, and we spoke to supporters of both candidates. What supporters of George Weah are saying is that he didn't have enough finances to execute the projects that he wanted to. They were saying that George Weah didn't keep to his promises. Those who are supporting opposition candidates are saying that he didn't keep to his promises. Some of them were accusing him of not staying in the country. They said most of the times he's outside Liberia watching his son play football. So those are some of the things that those who are not supporting him are saying. And others are also saying that especially the young Liberians, they said he didn't open up opportunities for them. Most of them are out of jobs. They said he should have created opportunities for them to get something to do. Most of them are jobless. And also those who are supporting Joseph Boakai are saying that he is the right man to do the job. Looking at his antecedent when he was vice president during Johnson Sirleaf. So these are the things that are going on. These are the things that people are saying on the streets of Liberia. But again, all of this will not constitute to votes until the final results are out. Then we will know who is the leader, who is the winner of this presidential runoff.
Right. And briefly, Punari, ma'am, how disputatious has the process been? I'm wondering if things are fairly civil and orderly and calm in Liberia, as far as you've been hearing, or are there fears of violence? Briefly.
Oh, the election was very peaceful. Even when the INEC, I beg your pardon, even when the ECOWAS observation mission had their briefing today with the EU observers, they said generally the election was peaceful. Well, there were violence in some counties, but they were not, they were put under control. And we just saw a smooth process. We just saw people who are really willing to vote for their next president. And we just saw the calmness, we saw the anxiety, exhibited by voters. And so far, I'll just say that the election was peaceful. We heard also that in some counties, some people tried to disrupt the process, but at the end of the day, the police were able to put everything under control and the process went on smoothly. So far, there were no violence, but not as much as what we experienced in Nigeria. And we also say that the election was peaceful because people actually cooperated. They followed the process, they followed the procedure, and they casted their votes without any agitation.
Okay, Dr. Bati.
Well, 85% of the polling stations in the runoff election in Liberia, has been counted. And out of that, that's how, the situation at the moment. Out of the total number of polling stations, about 8,500 have been counted, out of about 8,889 or so. And so the situation now is that Joseph Boakai is leading with 50.6%, and President George Weah is trailing behind with 49 point something percent, and leading, as Punarima pointed out, with about Bokai is leading with about 700,000 votes, with President Weah trailing around 600,000 votes. So it's a very tight race. It's a very close race. However, the National Electoral Commission of Liberia has a gap of 15 days from the end of polls to declare a winner. But the way it's going, given that 85% of the polling units have been counted and results collated, it looks like Bokai is likely to have an advantage. Bokai is 78 years old, has been vice president to President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. He has very significant experience in both the public and private sector. And his major campaign in this election has been that he will put an end to the mismanagement of the George Weah administration. And that will seem, and turn around the economy. And that would seem to have, resonated well with the majority of Liberians, as we seem to be seeing. This is the tightest presidential race since the end of the Civil War, and the fourth presidential election since then, with Joseph Boakai, as we have been told, leading. Now, President George Weah, when he won in 2017, scoring 61% of the votes in the runoff, very comfortably, did so based on his international popularity and the fact that the youth believed a lot in him. They saw him as a symbol of change, of a new generation. But as we were arguing the other day when we hosted Dr. Kester Ono and Ambassador Joe Keshi, that popularity has gone down. Because although the economy of Liberia increased about 48.2%, last year due to mining and also, some other improvements within the economy. The real sense is that unemployment is at an all-time high. And that's what Punarima was alluding to, that the young people who used to be behind George Weah, they are not so enthusiastic anymore because they say they don't have jobs. And in fact, close to 80% of the people in Liberia, cannot afford to eat a meal in a day, according to IMF report. So there's widespread poverty. So in real terms, there has been no improvement in terms of the living conditions, in terms of the material conditions of the people. George Weah, however, insists that he built hospitals, he built roads, and he provided free tuition for university students. But we can't prejudge the outcome. However, we can only describe the situation as it is. When the counting is done and dusted, the National Electoral Commission will announce the final results. As I said, they have a total of a 15-day window under the Electoral Act of Liberia. But what we can take away is that international observers so far, and even reporters, have said that the process was peaceful. Unlike the process during the October elections, the runoff has been relatively peaceful. And at the end of the day, it's the will of the people of Liberia that should prevail. And then whoever wins should be prepared to take Liberia forward, because there are very clear challenges to be addressed, whether it is Weah or it is Joseph Boakai at the end of the day.
So one thing is certain, the will of the people. What do Liberians want? To a large extent, they are telling George Weah that you had your chance and you did not do well. This was George Weah that was at an all-time high, international footballer, won many accolades, but he said he did some things. Give it to him, there were some reforms in the financial sector, but these reforms came in quite too late. But generally, the people don't feel good about it, and they don't feel good about the economy. They said he also opened the doors for corruption. Hence the problem that Liberia is facing today. Also, they said the government was largely very weak in the way it did things. And that's why, with the elections almost wrapping up, Boakai is already in the lead. Out of over 5,800, polling units, thereabout, they've counted over 5,100 polling units. And it's just about 700 more to go. And Georgia Weah is straight. In fact, Boakai has also increased the lead between yesterday and today, slightly anyway, but the margins are very small. And this speaks volumes. Part of the accusations against the government and weakness is the recent big deal for mining their lands with ArcelorMittal. Apparently, they had given another Swiss company concessions on those mining lands. Now, that Swiss company says they're going to take the government of Liberia to international arbitration. So those are part of the things, a haphazard nature of doing things, and many other factors that are there on ground. So let's see how the elections pan out. But the question is, can we ever have an election that is neck and neck like this in Nigeria? In all of this, we've not had manipulation of results. We had off-cycle elections recently. We all saw what happened. Accusations of manipulation of results. Some people want to transmit to IRF. But largely, people can trust the electoral umpire. And you can see from the results they're indicative, neck and neck. So why is it that little African countries are getting it right? Anyway, some people have argued with me and said, oh, Rufai, you know, Liberia had been there for so many years, you know, they've been having this process and all of that. But the question is, why is it that we, the giant of Africa, cannot get it right? And we are seeing countries increasingly having elections that are considerably above average in terms of acceptability. But we have elections that were highly disputed. Anyway, the court has ruled, but it still leaves much to be desired. Why are we having these challenges with our institutions? Our next election again in Zamfara was called to question recently. Now, an appeal court is saying it's inconclusive about the use of IRF. So there are many factors we have with our elections. So what lessons can we truly learn? Because you see, at the end of the day, what is democracy? Comes from the Greek word demokratia. Pretty much talks about government of the majority. So, how can the majority voice count in an electoral process? That's the big question for all of us.